The Bard and the Plague. You remember the story of Pinocchiete? This tale takes place during her time. Plagues have ever tormented the world, earth, and now Iloniri. Norn has weathered many plagues, and the scholars there would believe that people are stronger for it. In the region between Sucros and the Fey Forest, there are many villages, farms, crops extending into the far horizon, honest, spirit-fearing folk. And despite fearing the great gods and the spirits and the unseen powers, these people were beset by plague after plague. Times of sickness inevitably called upon bringers of happiness, such as bards. These traveling entertainers were trained or self-taught, and they would put many a smile on many a face. Once, during these times of uncertainty and plague, a bard happened upon a village. This is their story. In the belt between the candy north and the fading greeny of Fey, along a cold autumn road, there trode a bounty hunter and a bard. They slew a great beast together. Or rather, the bard distracted, whilst the bounty hunter slew. A head was to be turned in for a reward. The bard, in typical bard fashion, implored the hunter's past and home. The hunter tells of his hometown, and gives the bard directions to it. He wishes him well, and says that he has no desire to re-enter the sad burg. And before the bard set off for the village, the hunter handed him a locket. He gave a brief description of his wife and child, and said to avoid the first and give the locket to the latter. The bard promised to, at the very least, not pawn the locket for personal gain. And they parted. A dirt path. Foggy. Poetic. The very definition of lonely. Have these words meant anything yet? The trees tighten their grip. The clouds loom over the bard. The trees have memorials to honor those that have fallen to the plague. Signs warning all travelers to turn back. The signs warned of infection ahead. The bard was not worried. He was healthy. He had nothing to fear, and he knew to keep his distance. He was not born yesterday. The bard would not heed warnings. He had come too far. Far too far. Upon entering the town, silence is the only sound to welcome our hero. 'Twas late, but even the smallest village would have a night watch. He looked up and down the wide stone streets, the one-story gray shacks, the fountain in the town square. Not a soul could be seen. Then, like lightning, it occurred to the bard, even a night watch, town guard, or local hero must stop by the tavern for a drink. The bard decided to play right there in the middle of town. A plague doctor approaches and tells the bard to leave, the latter of which will not. The doctor was a stranger here as well, but his purpose was to cure the plague, and at the least, treat it. All white was his garb, his flesh unseen, none but a menacing mask for a face. Soon, a crowd of townsfolk gathered. The sun had nearly set. The arguing grew. The villagers berated the bard. They were a mass of grey cloth and pale faces. Theirs was to follow the doctor. He was their savior. And their savior had taught them that outsiders were bringers of plague. The plague was a thinking machine. It hated colors, the old, the middle-aged, songs and poetry. It demanded blood for insolence. And then a group of children, teenagers, and the village elder appeared. The elder rebuked the townsfolk for their unworthy behavior. The plague doctor gave a curt bow to the elder and retreated to his quarters. The elder apologized on behalf of the unwelcoming throng. He invited the bard into his modest abode. Inside, the elder spoke of his experiences. Once ago, this village was a beautiful town, but now time has eroded their vigor. The quiet village has had 3 harsh winters. Many had left, by way of cart, foot, and death. Many during this fall had fallen. Parents buried by their children long before their time. Many of the old, including his kind wife, the head elder woman, who had spent many years caring for the people by his side. The newfound orphans saw themselves living with the elder, caring for him as he had cared for them. Some were only half orphans, biding time whilst their parents stayed in quarantine. Many of the orphans in the house believed the plague doctor to be a man of dishonesty, not a charlatan, but not a saint with a cure either. They believed that his only goal was to squeeze the town coin purse dry. The elder, however, did not encourage this talk. They say he only helps by giving cheap pain-soothing drugs, and even then he extracts a hefty price. The bard had not known many doctors in his life, but he sympathized with these urchins. As a traveling trader of goods and services, he respected honesty and began to dislike this doctor for his apparent dishonesty. More tales, gossip, legends, and rumors were shared. Nothing quite like a warm fire and stories. One teen in the crowd stood out to the bard, and he realized it was because this child belonged to the bounty hunter. He presented the locket. The child instantly recognized it. The teenager told tale of the father, saying that the rumors were that he had died of plague. Then, in a wistful reminiscence, a story was told of the festival of Holly the Holy, a happy time. It took place over several days, with many colored lamps, gay happy feelings, and fires of blue, green, and violet. Oh, how they all longed for the simpler times of their youth. The bard began to promise that all would see smiles return to this sorrowful hamlet. Over the next few days, the bard and the children arranged everything they could, searching the old house for magic to use in the festival, baking confections and a modest feast. The elder did not help, nor did he hinder. He only asked that the bard do what his heart tell him. He asked the same of the children, and then he warned that the other townsfolk would do likewise. A time had passed. A certain warmth was in the air, and the orphans and bard were ready to begin their festival. Lights, feast tables, more lights, a massive punch bowl, and even more lights. The bard made the loudest noise he could, and with that the festival began. They would not let fear enslave them, and after making a veritable ruckus, the doctor stepped forth to oppose the bard and his merriment. He told the bard to leave, as he should have from the start. The bard was too high to listen. He would not let the doctor ruin his moment, his triumph over their silly, fabricated plague. Then, as they fought with a few words, the first punch was thrown. Red liquid refreshment spilled across the cloth of the doctor. Outraged by this near-drunken insult, the doctor let his fist fly into the bard's face. The bard began to do battle with the plague doctor, and as the townspeople watched, others began to fight as well. First with words, and then with hand and foot and frying pan. The fire had gotten out of control. It spread, and with no one willing to stop it, many properties burned in its terrible splendor. The very image of chaos, the town had cursed itself. The old and the new fighting, destroying one another. The only one sitting inside was the elder man. He said a silent prayer for respite, and he cried for his people. And with a flash of lightning, the bard killed the doctor. Rain began to fall. Everything was silence. The fighting did not stop. The bard did, however. He tried to shout over the sounds of destruction, but his voice was spent. The motion was started. But when would it end? And how? Then, as the downpour became a flood, and the last flames had died, and the people in their strength gave way, the elder did appear, and, in an even tone, he asked, "Have you had enough blood yet?" The people could fight no longer, so they listened. He asked the bard to leave immediately, and he said that on the morrow they would bury their dead. The bounty hunter's progeny did not protest the elderman, but stated that many must leave, not simply the bard. Many of the adolescents took up their possessions and vowed to return nevermore. The bard took one last look at the Burg of Grey, and he wished them all well, and without another word, our hero drifted into the night.